Okay, so we're going to go through here and look at the stuff in the session 2 folder. Oh, I just realized I pulled up the wrong one. Okay, so in the session 2 folder here, we're going to do the 2.1, the Tools Student Exercise. So I'm going to open that up and we'll use that to discuss some of the concepts that we're going to be going through here. Now, one of the things that I mentioned last week with respect to Revit's tool set is that in AutoCAD we are quite used to using the copy command first and then going and finding the object that we want to use and copying it. So if I want to say cut this piece of text, copy this piece of text, you know, we would go and type in CO and then pick the text and then move it. Now that is possible in Revit still. We don't recommend that you use that method. So in that case you would go to the Modify tab, and here's all of the copy, move, mirror, all those regular tools that we've used before in CAD. And now to use them in Revit, there's your copy command. So I'd hit copy, and then I'd pick the object that I want to copy. Then I'd hit space, just like AutoCAD. Then I'd pick my first point of displacement, then I would pick my second point of displacement. So in that respect, you can still do AutoCAD, but don't. You got to try and get that out of your headspace as soon as possible. What Revit wants you to do is to pick the object first, and then Revit brings the Modify tab to the foreground for you, and you can do with it what you will. So let's start off with the Modify tab. So getting this note, these notes here, modifying objects, the second handout that we copied twice. Now, the default mode in Revit is Modify mode. So if you don't have a command running or an object selected, you can see here the Modify mode is highlighted. And to get to the Modify mode at any time, you can just hit Escape. So if you were in the middle of drawing some walls, you hit Escape twice, and you're back in the sort of the select mode. So if you want to grab something and select it. So again, 2 escapes gets you out of any command. Now, on the select panel here, we've basically just got the Modify mode, and then below that here, there's some different selection modes that you can choose. Maybe one that I would recommend that you folks employ is unchecking this drag elements on selection. Uncheck it. Now here's the reason why. If it is checked, if you happen to be trying to select an object, you could accidentally grab it and drag it all in one go. So just see how you can click and drag something straight away. Now I'm going to Control Z out of that. And now I'm going to uncheck drag elements on selection. And watch what happens. Click, drag, nothing happened. But watch this. Click, first to select it, and now I can click, drag it. Well, actually it put me into text modification, but here, click, and now I can drag it. It's a much safer way to work. I just find that, you know, even having used Revit as long as I have, that having this drag elements on selection is often causes frustrating things to move around when you don't want that to happen. Now, let's click on the Modify tab just so we can bring it to the background, or foreground rather, so we can talk about the different commands that are here. Now, next to our Modify command are these 2 buttons here. One of them invokes or hides the Properties palette. Now, I think you can also do it with Control 1. Or is it Shift 1? I can't remember. Does Shift 1 make your Properties palette go away? If not, it might be just be 1. I've modified it on my computer. So 1, I think, or Shift 1, just like on AutoCAD, invokes or dismisses the properties palette. So again, there's the button for it there. Now, one of the things that we told you that you should get familiar with, and it'll just happen by default, is this button right here, Type Properties. Now, if you have an object selected, like this wall, if you hit this button here, that will take you to what we call the type properties of this wall. So this is a wall style here, exterior brick on block. And you can see underneath here, this is edit type. So now you can edit the properties of this wall type, or this wall style. Now, this button here, edit type, is exactly the same function as you get if you click it here. Just brings up the type properties. So for something like this text style, this would allow me now to go in and change the font and the font size, and whether it's bold-faced or expanded or compressed or any of those things. So that is the type properties button. Now, next to it is the clipboard panel, and there's the match properties command. So if you put your cursor on top of the match properties command, looks like a little paintbrush, you'll see the keyboard shortcut for it. It's probably MH on your machines. Look in brackets, for those keyboard shortcuts so you know what they are. It's by all means the fastest way that you can draw. Now, folks, we're going to start off now. We're going to do some selection of objects and just talk about the different pasting objects. So if you are in this 2.1 Tool Student exercise, just zoom in here to where there's this cut geometry exercise. And I'm just going to click this wall here and type in Control-C. So I have copied a 3D object to the clipboard. Now, you'll notice that the paste menu is grayed out. But if you move your cursor over to it now, you'll see that it becomes active. And you've got a series of pasting options listed on the bottom of page 1. Now remember, 3D objects in Revit live on your levels. 2D objects live in the views. So if I copy a 3D object, I can paste it to one of the other levels of my project. And that's reflected here because levels is displayed, but views is grayed out. So for a 3D object, you don't paste it to other views, you paste it to other levels. Now let's talk about some of the different paste options. If you choose align to selected levels, this would mean that you go into, it would display a list of levels that you can send it to. So now by holding down the Control key, you could paste this wall from level 1 to one or more other stories of your project. It would copy it to the same plan location. So by choosing aligned to selected levels, you choose which other stories you want that wall to go to. So it makes copies of the wall in the same plan location. So again, hold down the Control key and you can choose all these levels, or you can hold down the Shift key and it will choose inclusively all the levels in between. So there's Shift. So here's Control. So here in Control you can toggle. I just copied it to the same place. I will undo that. So again, the wall's still on the clipboard, so my paste menu now still shows the different options. Now you can see there's paste from clipboard. What that does is it just simply puts it on your cursor, and then you can put that wall anywhere you like. Aligned to same place, just will put it into the same plan location in the view that you are in, which is similar to aligned to current view. Now aligned to same place will also put that wall right back into its same XY location, so you can move one of them and have the original in its original location. Now let's pick the piece of text and copy it instead, Control-C. Now what we'll see for the paste options is that the levels choices are grayed out. So we cannot paste 2D objects to levels because they don't live in levels, they only live in views. So I can copy this same piece of text and put it in as many different plan views in a project as I want to. So quick way of getting stuff from one view to another. Now, just before we move further here, I want to bring to your attention that Revit has 3D lines and 2D lines. Now last week we talked about that all the 3D tools are on the Architecture tab and all the 2D tools are on the Annotate tab. So on the Architecture tab, you can find the Model Line tool, and I'm just going to draw one model line here right underneath my text. So there it is there, that's a model line. Now I'm going to go to the Annotate tab and grab the Detail Line tool, which is right here. And I'll just draw it right beside the one that's there. So even though the 3D line is green and the 2D line is red, you could make them so that they are both green. When you have any one of these line tools running, either the Model Line tool or the Detail Line tool, you can see there's a drop down at the top of the screen here, so you can choose one of the different line definitions that have been created. Last week we showed you that's in the Manage tab, and then Additional Settings, and then Line Styles. So these are all different line styles. So you can define their color and their dash or dash dot, whatever, and their line height. So this green one here is just called lines. So what I'm going to do, here is a 2D line that looks just as green and just as thick. So this is the 2D line here, and you can see on your cursor it tells you it's a detail line. And if I move my cursor over to the 3D line, the cursor tells you it's a model line. So they both look the same, but one's 2D and one's 3D. If you folks go to the View tab and hit the 3D View button, you can confirm by going into this location here. So I'm just going to use the Shift and the middle mouse button here just so I can orbit up. There's that green line right there. So that's the 3D line that we created in that plan view. And obviously those 2D lines don't appear in a 3D view. So if I go back to my level 1 plan view here, there's the 2D lines and there's the 3D lines. So if I take a 2D line and Control C copy it to the clipboard, when I go to the paste menu, I can paste this to other views in the project. So I can copy these 2D lines, and it could be text as well, or it could be text and 2D lines, and I can paste them to as many other plan views or ceiling plan views as I wish in the project. So one of the things, and this will be on your exam next week, or is it on the final exam? I can't remember which it is. But if you have some 2D lines that you draw for a roof overhang or for a ceiling over in your room, you could copy those roof overlines from a floor plan. You could copy them to the site plan just by Control C after you've copied all of those dashed lines for your roof over, and then you could paste them to the site using Paste to Selected Views. So Revit makes pretty short work of helping you move these geometries from one level to another, or from one view to another. So that's basically page 1. Over on to page 2 now, and talked about the paste options. Now, maybe what I'll do, let's go to page 3, and we'll talk about some of the specific tools on the Modify tab for geometric modifications, and this could be 2D or 3D. Now, one of the tools that's going to be really useful, I guess, or something that you'll use quite frequently is the Align command. Now, if you folks zoom out, you can kind of see the lay of the land here in the level 1 view. If you see this dependent on level 1, you can just ignore it. Go to the level 1 view instead. And I'm going to be working right now with this section halfway down the left-hand column right here with Mirror and Align. So we're looking at the top of page 3 in our notes, And we are first of all looking at the Align tool in our notes on page 3, top of the page. And this is the icon for it right here. Have a look at the keyboard shortcut that you have on your screen and see if you can get used to using that keyboard shortcut instead of hunting for it in the ribbon. So if you type in a keyboard shortcut in Revit, it goes to it straight away without hitting the spacebar. So I can just type in AL, and you can see the Align command has gone active. And here's how the Align command works. So just watch up on the screen here while I do it. With the Align command, you first pick an edge of reference. And when you do that, you get that dashed blue line on the screen, and that's telling you what you're going to be aligning to. So you're going to be aligning to that edge or that face. Now what I'm going to do is pick the edge of the desk here, the second desk, and what Revit will do is it will take that edge and align it to the first one. So it's going to rotate the desk at the same time. So it's taking that desk and it just swung it around, and you can see a lock icon. So if I lock it, it means that the second desk is going to maintain this relationship to the first one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of the Align command by hitting escape twice. Once, twice. Now what I'm going to do is demonstrate that if I take that first desk and just drag it around on my cursor, you can see that the second desk moves with it. If I grab the second desk now and move it around, it drags the first one with it. And you'll notice that as I drag that second desk up and down, it doesn't cause the first desk to move horizontally. Same if I grab the first desk, I can move it up and down, but it doesn't move the second one. But they're staying aligned because we hit that lock icon. Now again, we can use the Align tool again to get the horizontal edges to lock. So AL. So I'll pick the top edge of one desk and then the top edge of the other, and you can choose whether you want to lock it or not. So in this case I will. So now I'm going to hit escape twice, and if I move one of them around, the other one will move with it. They are completely locked together. And as you might guess, if I hit one of those two padlocks on the screen up there, I can unlock one or both of those constraints, as Revit calls it. And constraint is something that you'll see Revit talk about quite often. So a constraint in Revit is when one thing is locked to another. So that is a locked relationship between two objects. It's called a constraint. Revit will talk about that on occasion when it'll say constraints are not satisfied. What is that? Sounds like English, but I don't know what it means. What it means is that you've done something where Revit has to break that connection between two objects. So Revit says constraints aren't satisfied, and you hit OK, and what will happen is whatever locked relationship there was between those two objects is now broken. It's not a bad thing, but that's the kind of English you're going to run into in Revit from now on. And a very common error message is constraints aren't satisfied. So that just means you've broken that locked relationship between two objects that was made earlier. Align is a really powerful command, and you'll find that you use it quite frequently. Now, there is an Align multiple option. So again, let's use that Align tool. And if you look on the options bar up on the top left corner there, just above the project browser, you can see that there is a checkbox for multiple alignment. Now, if you check that, it means, well, let me show you what it does without it. Okay, now I'm going to leave multiple alignment unchecked just for a moment. So what I'm going to do is I want all four of these wall ends to align themselves to this wall end that you see in front of me. So if I click on the wall, that is the edge of reference. So now if I click on this wall end here, it brings that wall end in. But now what happens? Well, now Revit asks me again for an edge of reference. So I have to go back and pick the center of the wall and then the edge of this wall. So it's kind of like the alignment command stops. Now let me go back a couple of steps. If I choose multiple alignment, and here beside it you can see you can choose the center of core, which is the center of the wall, or the wall faces. So I'm going to choose wall faces just for now. So now Revit will default to picking the edge of the wall. If I zoom in here, now why is it not doing this? I don't know. So I can hover, tab, click. So again, to get Revit to choose the edge of the wall, I just hovered over the wall edge, hit the tab key once. Now you can see that blue line. So Revit's saying, hey, this is going to be your edge if you click. So now when I click, that's my edge of reference. Now I've chosen multiple, so this means that now I click once, brings that wall in, and that edge of reference is still a thing. So I can now click the second edge, and the third, and the fourth. So if multiple was not checked, this is the behavior that we would get instead. So again, line tool is still active. Pick the edge of the wall, pick the end of the wall, pick the end of the wall. Oh wait, now that's the edge of reference, right? So it's a, here's what the way it is. It's A, B. Now I have to pick A again. A, B, A, B, A, B. And if you have multiple chosen instead, then you just pick that one edge once, and all the subsequent clicks align to that first edge. So that's the difference between align and align multiple. Okay, offset command. So,
can you do that also with extend command?
yes. Oh yeah, it is. And we'll be talking about it. So I'm just kind of going through the notes here, so we'll get there. Move command, right there. It should be MV on your computers. So let me show you, and this is a good little concept here. So using the move command, so here I'm going to select this wall that we've just aligned to. So if you've got all those four walls in there, leave them joined up like this, and use the move command. And then move that wall downwards, and you can see what happens. Revit kind of stretches all those other walls with it. Now sometimes you want to move something and you want to break its connections to all of these walls. So I want to move this wall down, but I want to leave those four walls top ends where they are. So I want to move that horizontal wall down, but not change the lengths of these walls. So if I move them, you can see what happens. Revit just stretches them. But what if I don't want that to happen? Well, when you click on the object and you use the move command, there is a disjoin option. Now to my knowledge, that I don't even know if that's English. So again, down the rabbit hole we go. What it means when you check it is that Revit breaks all connections to this object when it's moved. There. So it left all those wall endpoints where they were. Now just a word of caution, Revit retains that box selection for the rest of the time that you use Revit. Now what's the problem with disjoin? Well, let me show you. If I happen to have some dimensions here to this wall, right, these ones right here, we're going to talk about dimensioning in a second. If I grab this wall and just move it with my cursor, you can see nothing. The dimensions hang around, they don't go away. And if I use the move command with disjoin turned off, no problemo. But now if I use move with disjoin selected, it breaks all connections not only between this wall and the other 3D objects, but it also destroys any connections between this wall and any dimensions that are snapped to it. So this dimension on the end and this one here are both going to get deleted. See, those dimensions went away. Now let's look at this again. So if I pick this wall and I move it and I uncheck this join, see how the dimensions are preserved. So that's just something to keep in mind, just Revit behavior that's a little bit different than other products. The constrain checkbox in the move command forces purely X or purely Y movements. So it's just like hitting F8 in AutoCAD to force that movement. The offset command, that's pretty straightforward. It's just like offset in AutoCAD. In this case, you pick the command first, pick your offsetting distance, and then pick the object, and it offsets it by the dimension that you choose. Now, note use of hover tab click when you're using this tool. So you can offset walls, and I think if you zoom out a bit, you folks can see that there is an offset area here where we can practice this. This is where hover tab click, again, just reinforce this feeling of putting your cursor on top of an object, hitting the tab key, like just tapping it once, and then left clicking. So here I've got the offset command started. I'm going to put a value in here of 2 feet. In Revit, if you don't indicate units in an imperial project, Revit assumes feet, not inches. So just get used to that. So if I wanted to offset something 6 inches, I'd have to put in 6 inches, or I could put in 0 space 6. Revit assumes the 0 means feet and 6 is inches. Now, you'll notice that the cursor is still flashing up here in the offset box. Now what I want to do is I want to hover, hit the tab key. Oh wait, it's not working. Now that is because my cursor is still up in this box. I need to get it out of here. So to do that, after you've put in a value for your offset, click in white space. It gets the cursor out of here and now allows this to happen. Hover. You can see just by moving it a few pixels one way or the other, that controls which way it offsets. Hover, tab, so hit the tab key, just tap it, and you can see it grabs all connected lines. And now without moving your cursor too much, click. Now, there is a danger that you hover, tab, and then you move your cursor a bit, oh, it's dead. So again, hover, tab, and without moving your cursor too much, get that left click to happen. Now that can be walls or lines, it works for both. Now when you're hovering and you've tabbed, before you click, you folks see the copy checkbox up on the options bar immediately above the drawing area, you see that? So it'll copy it now if I hit left click. If I hit the control key, see that? Control makes that little checkbox go away. So if I hold down the control key now, it's going to offset them, but not copy them. So it takes the originals and moves them in by the distance I specified. There you go. So that is something that you folks will just get familiar with as time goes on. Okay, the copy tool. Now this isn't Control C that we're talking about here, so there is a spot where we're doing copy. Folks can see where it is. It's just below that align area there. Now this copy command here is not Control C. It's like the copy tool in AutoCAD. So I'm just going to hit escape a couple times so I get out of the offset command. So there's a desk right here. Click it and then hit the copy command. Now, I wish Revit defaulted to multiple mode like AutoCAD does now. So if you want to do a multiple, hit the checkbox for it up on the rivet. Otherwise, you'll just get one copy and then the command quits. So there's my one desk copy. So if I want that to be copied multiple times, when I hit the copy tool, I have to hit the multiple option, and then I can make multiple copies. Now, when you are using the copy command, you don't have to click on the object to get a starting point of displacement. Now, if you want to copy exactly by the object's length, then of course you would snap to the object, and then your second snap would be at the other end to ensure that you are copying by the object's length. Now, you'll also notice there is a dimension value that's being displayed on the screen. And so what I can do after I pick that first point of displacement, as I move my mouse in a certain direction, that dimension value that you see up there, you can just directly type it in. So 12 is 12 feet. And so now I've got constraint on, so it's forcing me to move in just the X or Y direction. I can turn it off on the fly. So again, whatever value you put in, so I can put in 6 feet, or I can put in 0 space 48 for 4 feet, or you can do a little math. You can put in the equal sign and say 2 meters plus 6 feet plus 10 centimeters plus 4 inches. So you put that equal sign at the front. So here I'm just doing the arrow key backwards so you can see where I started. Put an equal sign at the front, and then you can put in a little equation in there, and Revit will move it by that amount. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, mirror by picked axis and mirror by drawn axis. I believe that is up a little farther in our drawing area here. Very similar to the commands that you may have used in CAD programs prior to this. So again, in Revit, pick the object you want to copy. And we've got the two different kinds of mirroring. Mirroring by picking a line that's already present, or mirroring by drawing a line to indicate the axis of mirroring. So this time we're going to choose the picked axis because there's already a line already here. So I pick the desk first, and I go up and I choose the mirror by pick mode, and you can see there's a little cursor there, so it helps you distinguish which is which. And you bring your cursor down and you pick that axis, and a desk is mirrored across that axis. Now the other example we're going to do here is picking the desk, and then we're going to draw a 45-degree line from the corner of this wall intersection, and of course that will mirror the desk around the corner. There is a little angle, temporary dimension that shows up. I believe you can manually type in, no you can't, you have to draw the angle. So at 45 degrees it rotates it around the corner. So still on page 3 of the notes, we just finished mirror, now we do rotate. So that's where we're doing it here. We're doing it on this sort of round wall. Now before I do the wall, I'm going to do the desk. So I'm going to pick the desk first, and we are going to rotate it. So you folks can see the rotate command right here. You can learn what the keyboard shortcut for it is. I think it's RO for you. Now, when the rotate command starts, it puts the axis of rotation in the geographic center of the objects that have been selected. So, for instance, if I pick this wall and control click this wall and control click the door and control click the desk, when I choose the rotation command now, you can see Revit just puts that rotation axis right in the geographic center of all of the objects that were selected. Now that's a pretty crummy place to do the rotation from. So up on the ribbon you can see there's place. This moves the axis of rotation to your cursor so you can choose for yourself where you want the rotation, the axis of rotation to be. Now alternatively, if you pick a few objects, so again control click, instead of going up to hit place, you can just hit the space bar. So if you just hit the space bar after you selected some objects, it does the same thing. It moves the axis of rotation to your cursor. So I'm just going to go back to the desk and rotate it first to begin with. So what I'm going to do is move the axis of rotation to an edge of the desk, to a corner rather, and it's just like rotate reference in AutoCAD. So that's my rotation point. Here's my first point of reference, and then I can choose my second. Now what if I wanted to move that desk so that it is parallel with this wall? Well, let's look at this again. I want to rotate this desk so it is parallel with this wall. So I pick the desk, fire up the rotate command, I hit the space bar to move the axis of rotation to my cursor, and I'm going to go down, you know, just along the length of this wall here somewhere, it doesn't matter where. That is my axis of rotation. Now, how do I get the desk so it's parallel to the wall? Well, look at the bottom edge of the desk, it's horizontal. So I put my cursor horizontal. And now I go down and just pick along the edge of the wall, and there we are. So the edge of the desk is now parallel to the wall. Now, to be honest, there's a few other ways we could have done it too. You could use the align command. So there's the align command we used earlier. And I could have picked the wall edge and then the desk and not locked it. So once it's parallel, I'll just hit escape a couple times to get out of the align command, and then I can just move this desk somewhere. Lots of different ways to accomplish the same thing. Now, let's talk about rotating and copying. So when we've been rotating objects right now, we haven't been using this copy feature, and now we are. So in the notes you can see here it says rotate with copy the interior walls, doors and desk 30 degrees clockwise. Select them and then rotate them, and away we go. So control clicking the walls, the door, the desk, so they're all in the selection set now, and now hit the rotate command. Now the notes say to hit the copy box. So this way when we do the rotation, we're keeping the originals where they are. Now we need to move the center of rotation, so I'm going to hit the space bar. So make sure your axis of rotation is at the cursor. Make sure it still says copy, and if it doesn't, make sure it's checked before you continue. Now what are we doing? We want to move the axis of rotation to the center point of this wall. So we hover over the wall, and we're doing an override snap. Put your cursor on the wall and type in SC for snap center. Now you'll notice down here there's a little pink circle that's telling you that you are snapping to the center of this wall if you click. So this is kind of like a hover pre-snap. So you hover over the wall, type in SC, and Revit shows you where that snap location would be, and if you left click it, you're in. So I left click, there it is. So it says just rotate it 30 degrees clockwise. So you can start anywhere with your begin ray and just start dragging it in a certain direction and type in 30, and you can see Revit direct accepts your rotation, and now you can hit enter. So it's rotated that set of walls around. So let's do one more. So I'm going to control click those walls. Oh wait, they're already selected. So all we have to do is go back to the rotate command. What do you folks notice? Copy is unchecked again. So we have to check it again. Then we'll hit place. So then we have to hover over that wall again. Hit SC for snap center. And now left click. Again, your start rate can be anywhere, drag, and then 30 degrees. I'll let you folks have a couple of stabs at that, and then we'll move on. Okay folks, let's move on here. We're moving on to the trim command. Trim. Works like fillet. Trim works like fillet. Okay, let me just show you what we mean here about how trim works like fillet. I'm going to do it here in the extend area. So right here where it says extend, extend multiple, I'm just going to show you folks how trim works. Alrighty, so here is the trim command up here. TR is the keyboard shortcut for it. So if I type in TR, with trim, it's like fillet with 0 radius in AutoCAD. Pick the ends that you want to keep. So here if I pick the top end of this wall and then this wall, it's going to pick the end I choose. So it's going to keep this end and like so. Now if I did it in the opposite order, if I pick the bottom end of this wall below the wall, this is the end that would be retained. Click, click. Now, with the fillet tool in AutoCAD, there was an option to draw a radius at the same time. Revit does not include that option in the trim tool. And you're like, well, that sucks. Actually, no. It's a concept problem on the developers of AutoCAD. The trim command, is it an object creation tool or an object editing tool? It's the latter. It's not an object creation tool. And when you had the option of creating a radius with the fillet command, you're actually creating geometry. So because Revit's developers are sufficiently anal to actually have that thought, they removed or never had the ability to create a radius using the trim/fillet command. So what you have to do instead is use the wall tool to create that radius. And let me, folks, show you a great little feature here. If you right-click on something in Revit, you can find Create Similar in the right-click menu. So if you right-click on a piece of text, you're going to get the text command, and it's going to create an object just like that one. Same font style, same wall style, same door type, same window, same anything. Right-click on it and choose Create Similar. Now I think AutoCAD has this now. You can right-click on it and choose Add Selected. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to just click on this wall, right-click, Create Similar. Now what you would do is in the wall tools, you can see that there are fillet arcs available in the drawing tools. So if you're wondering about how to create a fillet arc between two objects, it's in with the tool itself. It's not part of Revit's trim or fillet tool. That's just an FYI. Now below the trim command on page 3 of the notes is the Resize command, and this is your scale tool. So let's scale something here. Now I'm going to use these same walls here in the extend multiple and just show you how this works. For this to work, you select some objects first here, and now there is the Resize command. Now this is the thing that makes me laugh. When I first made these notes, or when I updated them a year ago, the software called this the Resize command. Now look what they call it. They call it the scale command. I mean, that's like guaranteed obsolescence for an instructor's notes. Anyway, same thing. So once you pick the command now with these objects being selected, you have the option of a graphical or numerical scale. Now it defaults to graphical. Now that is like scale reference. Actually, I think we've got it. There it is. It's up here, folks. Let's do it in the resize area. That makes more sense. Okay, so I'm going to control click these two walls and start the resize command. And we're going to use the graphical option. So basically what we're going to do, this is where we start at the end of this wall. Then we come, and this is the second click here. And now this is the third click at the blue line. So what's happening is that it's stretching everything proportionally. So you can see here, not only is this wall getting longer, this wall down here is getting longer by the same proportional amount. So it kind of scaled up the lengths of both of those walls. But why didn't it make them thicker? Why aren't the walls thicker than when they started? Exactly. It's the type property of this wall. This wall is a 5.5 partition, so 4.5 inch wood stud with 1/2 inch gypsum board on each side. When we scale up that wall, we don't want it to get thicker. That's a property of the wall. Now, if you select a bunch of lines and use the resize command on them, they'll all scale up just fine. So 2D objects, they scale up as you would expect. With 3D objects, they will just change their length because obviously their thickness is a function of the definition of the object. Now, we've got the split command, which is up just above it here. So there's our split. So the split command is much like break in AutoCAD. These are the two icons for them up here, split and split with gap. Let's talk about the split command work first. So it puts a little X-Acto knife in front of you. I'm always slightly traumatized whenever I see one of those X-Acto knives. I just about cut my finger off as a kid trying to get a part off a plastic model when I was in So anyways, gives me the heebie-jeebies. Bring this thing down on top of the wall, and you'll notice now, right where this line and wall intersect, the line's being highlighted, but we want to split the wall. So when we hover our cursor over, guess what we hit next? Tab. So now we're going to split the wall instead. And sure enough, you can see that black line that confirms that you split the wall. So if you accidentally forgot to hit tab, you would have just split the wall into two pieces. But if you go back and click in the same place, you might get lucky and it would split the wall, and it does. But not at the intersection. So let me just go back a couple of steps, Control Z. Right on the wall, hit the tab key once, hover, tab, click. Now, again, paying attention to the Revit interface, with the split command still active, look on the options bar over on the corner there, delete inner segment. Now this means that if you do 2 clicks on the same object, Revit will delete the piece in between. So here, delete inner segment. Hover, tab to make sure I'm clicking on the wall. Then on to the next spot here. Again, it wants to go to that line first. Hover, tab, click. And look at that, it cuts out the wall in between. Okay, give that a go. So with the delete inner segment option, it must be 2 subsequent clicks on the same object. Okay, moving on here, folks. Split with gap. It's right by the split tool, right beside it. And with this tool, you can create a gap right where you do the split. So with split, there is no width for that gap, but if you choose split with gap, here you can put it in. So if I just put in 1 here and hit enter, Revit assumes 1 foot. So now I put my cursor, I got to get my cursor out of the box here, so I click in white space first. So the cursor is out. And now I put my cursor down on top of the wall, and I just want to make sure it's going to split the wall first. Now another way of checking is by looking on the cursor and seeing what Revit wants to choose. So here I don't have to hit hover tab click because Revit by default is just going to pick that wall right away. So there, I don't have to hit tab, so I can just click, and now it creates a 1 foot gap at that location. Okay, let's do array. So array is down here. Now there's 2 different kinds of arrays. There's a second point array and a last point array. I'll demonstrate them both here. Just keep an eye on the screen. It's pretty straightforward stuff. You pick on the object, and there's the array command there. Now before you get started, There's your two options there. Move to second, move to last. These guys right here. Last, second, last, second. So here's how it works. You fire up the array command, choose which mode you want to use. So we're doing a second point array. So we pick our first point, and now this is going to be the second point in the array. So with a second point array, the distance between the first and second object defines the distance for all of the others in the array. So here if I pick 0 and then 4 feet as my second point, all the other members of the array will be 4 feet apart. So you do your second object in the array, and then Revit asks you with this little box here how many objects you want in the array. So now I've got 6 windows, all spaced 4 feet apart because of the distance between the first and the second. So let me undo. So again, I pick the window, I choose the array command. It's still in second mode, so I click anywhere, and now I drag 5 feet. So that's my distance between objects in the array. How many do I want? This time I'll say 4. Well, I said 4 last time, I'll do 3. So now I've got 3 objects in the array, spaced 5 feet apart. Now, you get this little sort of a tree or a connector between the members of the array, this black line with a number. So now I can click that number and change the number of objects in the array. Ta-da. Well, what if I want to change the spacing now after the array has been created? Well, all you got to do is change the spacing between the first and the second object. I can do that with a dimension. Let's show you guys how dimensions work. So on the Annotate tab, grab the Align Dimension tool. So aligned. And I'll just go from the center of one window to the center of the next. So that's click 1 right in the middle of the window, and click 2 in the middle of the next window. Find some white space and place it. Now for this next step, I can't be dimensioning, so what key do I hit twice to quit a command? Escape. Once, twice, and I'm out. So now I pick my second window. Now what I'm hoping is that the text will turn blue here. It did not. So there's this button up here, and we'll talk about this in a couple of minutes. Activate dimensions. And now I can change that spacing to 4 feet, 6. And you can see all the other windows followed along. So that is a second type array. Let's do the last point array. Now with the last point array, the distance between the first and the last member of the array is what matters. Then Revit just infills in between with the number of copies you want. So same thing, pick the object, grab the array command, but this time we're choosing the last option. So again, pick your starting point, drag it for how far you want the last member of the array to be from the first one. In the notes you can see 44.6, 44 foot 6 inches, so I can go 44 space 6, and Revit understands that to be 44 foot 6 inches. And there it is. Now Revit says how many members do you want in the array, and whatever number you choose, Revit fills in between with the number that you chose. So now I have 9 in between. The notes asked for 6, so I put that in there. And you can see the distance between the first and the last is maintained, and Revit just infills in between. So that is your first and last member of the array. So each time you click on one of those members in the array, it's part of what's called an array group, and you can see the number will be displayed above the array, so you can change the number of objects in the array. Now, if you're kind of done with the array and you don't want to see that little dashed box around the objects anymore, just Control select them all. So I'm holding down the Control key and I'm picking every last one of them. And have a look up on the ribbon. There's an Ungroup button which will allow you to break up this whole array business, and then these things just go back to being regular windows that aren't grouped in this little array control thing.
Can you move them again?
No, it breaks the array. So Usually an array thing is just something you do initially for a design, and you kind of fiddle around with it, and then you ungroup it. Is there any issues with keeping it forever? No, you can keep it grouped forever if you wanted to. No impact. Pardon me? Oh, yes, yes, of course. There is a polar array feature right here. But these things aren't on a curve, so yeah, and it works the same way. Alrighty, extend multiple. Now we talked about how we use the align command earlier with these walls and with those desks. Now, of course, the regular extend command is here, and there they are. Extend single or extend multiple, and that's usually the one you choose. So in this case, when you use the extend command, it also works like trim. So you pick an edge that you want to extend or trim to. So that's my edge of reference. And then I can just click the objects that I want extended. Now, what about trim? Well, it works the same way. So I'm going to move this thing in. I'm going to move it with disjoin, so it will be like so. So I just move that in, and I'm going to use that extend trim command again. Pick this as the edge of reference, and now it will trim it back. So you pick, again, you pick the side that you want to keep. Now people are like, is there a fence mode? There is. So you pick the edge again that you want to use as the trimming point, and then just do a crossing select over walls or over these objects, and they'll all be trimmed back to this point. So you're kind of picking multiple objects at once to be trimmed. So it's kind of like fence, but on the opposite side. So let me just show you again. So here is extend multiple. Pick the edge that you want to be your cutting edge, and then you can control select the edges that you want kept. So normally with the trim command, this would be the edges that you're cutting off, but in Revit, these are the edges that you're retaining. So it's actually going to cut these guys here back, like so. Unfortunately, there isn't like a crossing polygon where you can go click, 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 and kind of go around in a circle to pick things, unfortunately. Maybe at some point they'll add that to Revit. It's one of the few things that I do miss from AutoCAD. Okay, so pin, unpin, midway down page 3. So this allows an object to stay in place without getting nuked accidentally. Really good for your grids and levels. Pick an object, and where's the pin? The pin, right there. Pin it. I think PN is the keyboard shortcut for it. Pick it. And now you can see you can't change its length, and you can't move it. And if you try to delete it, Revit says pinned objects were not deleted. Very handy. So if you want to unpin it, just hit the little pin, and there it is. It shows you it's being unpinned, and then after that, when you select it, I'm surprised it still shows that pin icon. Maybe if I select another object and then this one, yeah. Oh no, it's still remembering it. Huh, wonder how long it'll remember that I've unpinned that stupid wall. Huh, apparently for a while. Alrighty. Delete, no big deal there. Now what we're going to show you folks is the view panel. This is kind of like turning off a layer in AutoCAD, but not, because you're only going to be hiding one object. Okay, let's say that we wanted to hide all walls in this view. You folks will know what to do pretty soon. You hit VV on your keyboard, which brings up all of Revit's categories. And you could scroll down to the wall category and turn off all walls. So as soon as I hit OK, all my walls would be hidden. So that's all walls. What if I just want to hide one? VV is the keyboard shortcut. So it's kind of like turning layers on and off in AutoCAD, VV. But I don't want to hide all the walls. I just want to hide one. So how you do that is you select it. And if you look at the bottom of page 3 of our notes on the view panel, there's the light bulb icon. So you've got 3 options. We're only going to talk about the first 2. So if I choose hide category, that's just like turning off walls in that VV dialog. Hide category. If I choose hide elements, it just hides that one wall. And you might think, oh no, it's deleted. No, it's not. It's just hidden. Down on the bottom of the drawing area here, there's a tiny little light bulb that's really important because when you click it, Revit shows you objects that have been hidden in red. So you pick an object, hit the light bulb icon up here, first of all. That's how you get an object hidden, by choosing hide elements. And then if you want to bring it back, you go down and hit this little light bulb icon at the bottom, really small. Click it, and it shows you that hidden wall, which now you can right click and unhide the element. Now you'll also notice that there is a hide choice in the right click menu as well. So just like I unhid this element, of course you can right click on it and hide element as well. So you can either go from the light bulb menu or in the right click menu, but you've got to hit that light bulb at the bottom to restore an object that has been hidden. You got to hit that little light bulb icon at the bottom, really small little light bulb. Everything turns red. Yeah, right click on the hidden object and away you go. So that little light bulb there. Okay, folks, over to page 4. Have a look at the override dialog box there. That allows you to override a single object. That's something that I would caution you against doing frequently. It's kind of like making a line in AutoCAD that isn't by layer, right? You know, you can graphically assign a line in AutoCAD a color instead of going by layer. That's the same concept with this dialog box on the top of page 4. I'm going to skip the line work tool because we'll do that in the exercise together. You guys can, let's see here. What do I want to do here? I want to talk about the line work tool. So before we get into the exercise on page 5, let's look at the line work tool and the join roof tool. So if you folks look in the plan here, this is where we are. We're going to talk about 2 tools at once. Now, the line work tool allows you to change the line work of the edge of an object in a certain view. You can use this tool in elevation, you can use it in plan. Now what we're going to do is we're going to join this little roof here, which is actually a rounded barrel roof, and we're going to attach it to our main roof here. So I'm just going to show you in 3D what's going on. So here's the zone where we are. So you can see we've got our little simple shed roof here, or simple sloped roof, and I've got my barrel roof, which is right beside it. So here's the command, and I'll do it in 3D so you can see what's happening. On the Modify tab, here is the Join Roof command. So it looks like a little small roof plan. And Revit shows you with the little graphic at the bottom how each tool works. So there's our Join Roof command. So first of all, on the cursor, look what it says. Select an edge at the end of the roof that you want to join. It's this one. It'll turn blue. Then you choose the face on the roof that you want it to join into. This one here. So it's taken a curved roof and projected it onto our simple roof. Now, this shape here is actually an ellipse, and it's a conical projection, right? So it would be a difficult thing to kind of figure out in AutoCAD. So Revit's just kind of sorted that out for you. Now I'm going to go back to the plan view here, and we're going to talk about the line weight tool. So there we are. So you can see in plan what has happened. One of the complaints I get about Revit, and it is valid, is that the line weights can sometimes appear a little bit flat, mostly in elevation. And the line work tool can help with that. Now here in this plan view, let's say you wanted to punch up the line weight of the edge of the roof so you can kind of more easily distinguish between your eaves and your valleys and ridges. So by default, this is kind of what you're going to get, like line weights for your roof. So how do we punch it up? On the View tab, or on the View panel, on the Modify tab, it's this tool right here. This is the Line Work tool. Now, when we activate this tool, Revit shows a list of line styles. Now, these line styles here are the same list that you get when you use detailed lines or model lines. So again, go to the Manage tab, go to the Additional Settings drop-down menu, and you'll find line styles in there where you can create or modify these line styles that are used. Now Revit doesn't have AutoCAD's layers, so it's got its own separate dialog box for drawing these, for creating these different sorts of lines where you can choose their, how they're dashed, and what their line weight is, and assign a name after you've made those choices. So in this list there is wide lines at the bottom. This is a pretty heavy line weight. Wide lines right here. And what we're going to do is pick the edge of the roof. So when you're using the line work tool, you put your cursor on the edge of an object and it'll highlight. So now we can adjust its line weight. And I'm just going to go around the perimeter of my roof and sort this out. Now once you get to the left edge of our roof, not what we want. Now you notice that immediately after you pick an edge, you get controls at either end. So what this will allow you to do is grab one of those controls and bring it down, and then you can control how much of this total length of this edge has its line weight modified. Grab the blue dot, drag it down, down to this corner. So now, just this segment of the entire line has its line weight modified. Well, now we can go and click on this line up here. And look, there's the control there. So now we can grab that control and drag it back to this intersection. And there we go. And then we can continue clicking those other three edges, and the line weight is modified. Now the really cool thing about this tool is that if the roof plan were to change, if the building got a little bit bigger, these modified edges would move along with that object. So again, don't try to do this, I just want to demonstrate the concept.
That's not changing anything in 3D, right? It's
Oh yeah, oh no, and it's not changing anything in 3D, but it is changing the 3D object. So see, look at the roof is bigger. If I go to 3D, see the roof is bigger, but back in plan, right, that line work, that line weight redefinition of this edge continues. So unless the roof is deleted, these modifications will persist. Now what if you don't like them? What if you want to go back to its default line weight? Well, when you're using the line work tool, there's one option in this list that's called, and it should be at the top, by category. Now what does that mean? By category means the default line weight for this object in this view. Does anybody remember what that dialog is where we change our line weights for everything in Revit? No, you all have lives. It's object styles on the Manage tab. So if you ever wanted to change how roofs are shown in plan when they're not being cut through, I should say how roofs are shown in projection. This is a projection. We're not cutting through the roof. So if I choose my category, this roof edge, whatever roof edge I choose, goes back to the object styles definition of how a roof in projection should appear. Again, I'll bring it back to your memory. Manage, object styles, and this is a roof. So if I go down, 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 down to roofs, there it is. Projection line weight of 2, black, solid. So if I make the projection line weight a crazy big number, which you should not do, see what happens? Projection line weights are now super thick and the rest of them are not. So obviously you wouldn't do that. But that's, again, if you need to change something about the line weights in your project, you're not happy with how they look, Object Styles is the dialog box for that. So again, Modify tab, Line Work tool, choose a line style out of the list, and it gets applied to that edge. So here I can choose one of my colored ones, there. Now, if I have other plan views that see this roof, they're not being affected. The line work tool only works in the view that you are in and using this command. So there you go. Alrighty. I'll talk about temporary hide later. We don't have that much time left here, so I'm going to go through the exercise on copying 3D objects to other stories. So we've got to go to the level 4 plan view. So find it on the left here, and if you don't see anything, just type in ZX on your keyboard. So you'll see this plan view. Now you're wondering, what are you looking at here? If we go to 3D, it's this area over here. And I just typed in SD. SD is shading, so you can see a bit of color. HL, hidden line. WF, wireframe. SD for shading. Now what we're doing here is in this little sort of tower area, you can see there are no floor slabs. So what we're going to do is fill around our elevator core with the slabs that we need. So level 4, here we come. From the Architecture tab, choose the Floor tool. So I'll just pick on the Floor tool, not the drop down. And Revit puts you into what's called sketch mode. So a sketch in Revit is a series of closed, non-intersecting, non-overlapping, pink lines. So let me show you a valid sketch. A rectangle. Closed, non-intersecting. So that means you cannot have an infinitesimal gap like this. Like this. Right? So even if it's a teeny weeny little gap, well, Revit tries to close it up again, but no. You can't have that. You can't have intersections like this. You cannot have an eeny weeny little line overlapping on top of the other one. Revit will hate you. And sometimes you'll hate Revit because a lot of times you'll look and you'll say, hey, everything's cool, man, there's nothing wrong here, and you finish, and then remember there's that little extra segment I had in there? So I finish, Revit says can't have overlapping lines, and you're like asterisk, pound sign, exclamation mark, at symbol. There are no overlapping Revits. Lines, Revit, go say, do something rude in a corner. But unbeknownst to you, there is that teeny weeny little line segment in there. So that's the kind of stuff that you'll be pulling your hair out with Revit about for the next little while. So that little piece is making you miserable. And sometimes you accidentally have two lines right on top of each other in the same place. And again, you finish, and you're like, oh, the lines can't intersect each other. These current lines intersect. You're like, what? And you go in and you zoom in, and like, no, that one's fine, that one's fine. But what you didn't know is that there's two lines right on top of each other. How would you know this? Well, you can select them. Two. There's a little icon at the bottom that tells you how many things you've got selected. Select this line. Only one. Select all of them. There should be only 4. Oh no, there's 5. So that's the kind of stuff that you folks will run into in the next little bit. So I'll just delete that. Now when you go into the floor command, Revit defaults to that icon I've just picked, the Pick Walls tool. Now why is this? Well, when you make a floor, usually if it goes to your exterior walls, if you move your exterior walls out, you want the floor to suit, to match. You don't want a little slot where all your marbles can fall off the floor and down into the next story below. So when you move your walls out, you want your floor to stretch along with it. So when you start the floor command, Revit kicks you into that mode. Now, we have 1 foot wide curtain wall mullions here, and if I put my cursor on my curtain wall, it puts it smack dab in the middle of the mullion. Well, it doesn't because of the 6-inch value. But if it was 0, if I put my line there, see, it puts it right in the middle of the mullion. We don't want that. That's why there's a 6-inch offset already in there, so that when you click on a wall, it puts it not at the edge of the mullion, or at the center of the mullion, it puts it at the edge. Now you want it at the inside edge on all sides. So I'm just going to delete and start from scratch here. So pick walls, 6 inches, you put your cursor on the wall, and hopefully it puts it on the inside edge. So we're just going to go around and pick all of the edges, and hopefully it puts them all on the right side. If it does not, so let's say this line over here, this sketch line's on the outside of our curtain wall. We don't want that. So once you've got all of your sketch lines placed all around the perimeter, and you've got this one oddball that's messed up, hit escape twice. Go click on the offending sketch line and hit the double arrows here to flip it. Now you've noticed it's taken all of my lines and flipped them to the outside. What I'm going to do now is just click it again, and all of them should be flipped to the inside. So that's step 1. Now this is an elevator core, so if we did nothing else here, that slab would go right through our elevator core. Now we don't want that. We want to create a hole in the middle of the slab for our elevator core. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the Pick Walls tool, but instead of a 6-inch offset from where we pick, we're going to make it 0. So you put your cursor in the middle, 0. Or put your cursor in the offset value box at 0. Now we want to use hover tab click, so we got to get that blinking cursor out of the offset value box. So click in white space to get the cursor out of there. And now hover, tab, left click. So you want the slab to stop at the outer edge of our core walls. If it's at the inner edge that you see right now, hit the double arrow to flip it so that the sketch will be at the outside edge of our elevator core walls. Revit is noticing that the floor and the wall meet, so what Revit wants to do is a little Boolean join between your concrete wall and your concrete slab. That's fine, go ahead and hit yes. So now, there's our slab, and if we look at it in 3D, so again, if you want to see that, view, 3D, and there's our first slab. You folks can see it in the middle here. So what we want to do is copy it from level 4 to the other levels. So let's do that. So I'm going to go back to the level 4 plan view by double clicking on it. Here we are, back in the level floor plan view. So I want to select my slab so I can Control-C, copy it to the clipboard, and paste it to the other stories. So if I put my cursor here in the middle, I can't seem quite to select it. If I put my cursor at the edge here by the mullion, now it's highlighting the mullion. I'm going to tab once. Now it's selecting the curtain wall, tab again. Now it's grabbing all the curtain walls, tab again, mullion. And now slab. So if I left click it now, I get the slab. And you can see it turns blue. So again, put your cursor at the edge, tap the tab key repeatedly until the floor highlights. Now for some of you it might not work. So what would you do then? Well, there's a couple things you could do. You could go to the select menu where we talked about that dangerous drag elements on selection. But the one above it can help you here. Select elements by face. Now this means, see, when I select on the face of this slab, not working. Now, from the modify menu, if I choose to select elements by face, now when I put my cursor on it, look at that. Click the slab. So now Control-C, it's on the clipboard. Control-C. Now I go to my paste menu and I say aligned to selected levels. So you can see here there's a little dialog box icon, so it's just kind of letting you know. And we're on level 4 right now, so we want to copy it to level 5. Control key, level 6, holding down the control key, roof. Hit OK, and back to 3D again. There's the other slabs, copied to the other levels. Okay, we're in overtime here, so we'll leave it at that. The other exercise here, page 6, get that done before next week, and then copy it into your sharing folder. Have a good night, everybody.